Well, the new era continues for the Minnesota Vikings. The next step, of course, the NFL Draft coming up in a few days, and we're here to preview it on a new era, a Draft Outlook special here at TCO Studios. Along with Ben Leber, Mitchell and Gabe Henderson, I'm Hobie Artigue. And Ben, this time of the year always gets exciting for teams. How do the Vikings look at this point in time here as they get ready for 2022?
I mean, I think they look solid. They look solid. I mean, they're going to have a lot of different choices at 12. I think that's the most exciting part. But I think we're all going to probably agree that a lot of curiosity. Yeah. We don't know what this front office is going to do. We don't have a historical background, no perspective. But overall, really excited because we're going to find a high-end starter at 12.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're going to find someone great at 12. I think maybe they'll just stand pat. We can talk about that later, going up or back. But what I think will be intriguing is, do they go for it? Do they try to move up? Are they aggressive? Do they stand pat? So we don't know. It's not like the years past where, oh, maybe they're going to do that and stockpile some picks, you know, where we kind of know what's going to happen. So that's kind of exciting right now.
Yeah, and the Vikings, they spent, over $80 million in free agency solely on the defensive side of the ball. So clearly, Kwesi and this front office is saying, okay, we may go best player available, which makes all of this exciting. But there are going to be some holes, some opportunities to fill those holes, but more importantly, be able to address them in the draft. And I'm excited just to be back in person. Like, this is great, right?
This is great. We're back, everybody. Hopefully the Vikings can return to form as they chase a Lombardi trophy. But here's what's coming up on the show today. In our quick rundown, we'll get into the free agent pickups that the Vikings were able to make, especially Zadarius Smith coming here to the Purple, putting on that uniform. However, they address some areas in free agency, but not everything. We'll take a look at the NFL Draft. Pete Bursich goes into the film room to give us his top 3 fits. And at the very end of the show, we give you who we think will be the guy at number 12. But speaking of those free agent pickups, some big ones for the Vikings, including Zadarius Smith, also Harrison Phillips, Jordan Hicks at inside linebacker as well, kind of addressing every area of the defense. And oh, by the way, Patrick Peterson returning as well. Ben, the Vikings made some key additions on the offensive line as well, but defense is where everyone is looking at right now. Who do you think is the most impactful new addition moving into this season?
Well, I'm going to go with Zadarius. To me, he seems sort of like the most obvious pick. The thing I liked about just rewinding a little bit, you look at free agency, and we have 5 starters now. If you add Patrick Peterson in that mix, I know it's kind of a re-sign, but kind of a free agent signing. We bring him back. We have 5 starters in some definite needs on this defense through the free agent process. So, you know, a lot of home runs, I think, in free agency and for contract-friendly and team-friendly deals. With Zadarius, you know, I think that it's a team-friendly deal. It's basically a week-to-week deal because of his back injury. We need a guy on the opposite side of Danielle Hunter. I think everybody sort of questioned how disruptive we can be on the other side. And I'm a big believer. I'm just an old-fashioned believer that you help out the secondary by disrupting the quarterback. Most of the big plays that happen in the secondary is because the quarterback's getting hit or pressured. So we needed a guy like him.
We saw that lack last year. Maybe that can change this year.
You know, I have to agree with you, Ben. I think Zadarius is the number 1 guy. And like you said, he's the easy guy to do that. But yes, we also don't know just how effective Danielle Hunter is going to be even, right? So if you team up, you've got that. But you also have this little safety in terms of, not the position, little safety valve in terms of his play up front. I think maybe they can even add another key cog up the front. But also what I liked as maybe a secondary is I love that they added 2 on the offensive line, because every year we say, we need help on the O-line, and then we never see it addressed. So I really love the fact that Jesse and Chris, that they're here, and like you say, you can never have enough corners. I say you can never have enough O-line.
Yeah, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say Patrick Peterson. And I think having a guy that shores up one side of the ball in the secondary makes sense for this defense. It's great to have pass rushes, you know, Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith on the outside. But if you can have somebody, if a quarterback is getting the ball out of his hands 2 seconds, you need to have a cornerback there that can stop that. And Patrick Peterson has proven that he can do that. In the league, about what have you done for me lately? Rewind back to last year, week 18 against the Chicago Bears. He's a guy that can make some plays, and you shore up one side of the ball, and then that tells you that, hey, we may be able to go somewhere else in free agency and possibly go, I mean, not free agency, but at the draft, but possibly go best player available. So having Patrick Peterson, I think that's an underrated signing, and I think it's great for this Minnesota Vikings team going forward.
Maybe another LSU corner on the other side. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But taking a look at the top 3 cornerbacks that are available right now, the Vikings have 3 quality options that might be at play whenever they get to that pick that will be at number 12. You have Sauce Gardner, who is a guy that a lot of people like out of Cincinnati, Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU, and also Trent McDuffie from Washington. I think everyone can agree that that is the top position of need right now, Gabe. Which of those three guys stands out right now?
I'm going to go Derek Stingley Jr. just because of his play, and just he can play both inside and outside. He can guard your number one receiver. He can do everything you need him to do. The Lisfranc injury is possibly the biggest question mark for everybody else, for everybody right now. But you bring him here with Devontae Jones, who was his DB's coach at LSU, on top of Patrick Peterson. This is a guy that can make a lot of plays going forward, and I think he'll have a lot of great opportunities to develop under a veteran defense.
You know, I think Sauce is the most plug and play of the three of them, but I don't feel in my heart that the Vikings are going to trade up to try to get him because he's going to go off the board fast. And yes, of course, I mean, I'm a New Englander, right? I grew up with Darryl Stingley when I was a kid. That was like my first memory of what happened. And then when I was in Chicago, I know everyone talks about Derek's dad playing baseball, but he also played for the Chicago Rush when I was there. He played arena football. So, I mean, that would be kind of like the heart pick in a way for me. But my only issue is, and everyone talks about his Lisfranc injury, or Lisfranc, however you want to pronounce it. The only really good tape that we've seen, and it was phenomenal, was 2019. And that's a long time ago, and I know you're LSU. But my thing is, yes, he's great. He was great in 2019. Is that going to hurt him going forward?
I will say it worked out for the Vikings to take a guy from that LSU championship team whenever they did so with Justin Jefferson. But also looking at McDuffie, Ben, is there anything that jumps out to you that could make him an impact player on this team? Or is it kind of that's 1A, 1B at corner, and then after that we'll see where everything goes?
I actually think it's very debatable which one is better between Stingley and McDuffie. And I could see how there'd be a lot of executives that say, well, I think McDuffie has these traits, and Stingley doesn't have these traits. So when I look at Trent McDuffie, I think that he has more bounce to his step. I think he's a phenomenal looking athlete. He has smoother transitions in a short area. He was often lined up on the boundary side of the field, which means that you have to take on a lot more of the quicker throws. So they want more of the sticky cornerback on that side. I think he's a little bit more tenacious in the run game, and I think he's a little bit better blitzer. So you add up all those things, and I think there's an argument to be made that he's a little bit better than Stingley, given the fact, Don, as you pointed out, a lot of people think that his tape sort of dropped off a little bit. Personally, look, he only had 3 games last year. I thought he played at a pretty high level. I thought he showed improvement from 2020 to 2021. So I think I'll go against some of the experts saying that he was regressing. I actually think in those 3 games he elevated his play. I thought he was a little more physical, getting off blocks. I thought he played a little bit more headsy. So I think his game was on the rise. It's just that he got hurt. He has phenomenal tools. I think McDuffie has a little bit more bounce in his step, a little lighter on his step, and McDuffie's only big thing is he's 5'11".
Yeah, and I agree with you a lot there, Ben, as far as like being able to improve every year that he's been in college football. My only thing with him is he played a lot of zone defense. It reminds me a lot of Josh Norman when he was in college, and when he played for the Carolina Panthers, he looked great in the zone defense. And we know the NFL, they run man-to-man 29% of the time. Well, Ed Donatel, who was the assistant defense coordinator for the Denver Broncos last year, they ran man-to-man 40% of the time. And when you talk about plug and play, Derek Stingley Jr. ran man-to-man a lot in college. So I think that will probably translate a little bit better here, but Trent McDuffie is a great cornerback.
I think a lot of people also have the question, too, because you look at mock drafts right now, and it has the Vikings, in many of them, taking a cornerback. The question, though, is if Sauce is gone, if Stingley is gone, where do they go? Dawn, who do you like if they have to go away from the cornerback position?
Okay, so this is going to give away who my pick is, so I'm not going to go there. Okay, so let me go with the other person I think that they might take. I think if they stand pat at 12, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, if they stand pat at 12, I don't really consider these guys dark horses at all. But there is an offensive lineman out of Boston College, Zion, that I think is fantastic.
You get on me for LSU. Here goes the BC connection.
I had to go with my alma mater, right? and if you don't go O-line, like I love O-line, there's also Kyle out of Notre Dame. Thank you. Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame, and I know that we've gone that route before. I just really like how he plays. He's stable, and I think that would be another look to go outside if they don't go corner, but it's still in the DB room.
I'll ask you two this, though. Everybody's looking at defense right now. What do you think the reaction would be if the Vikings drafted a wide receiver?
I would honestly be on board with that. And you said route. I like to say route, being from the South. This guy is a spectacular route runner, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. He ran a 4.38, and he ran a 4.38 at his pro day. He's a dynamic receiver both inside and out, and we don't have a receiver right now that can take the top off. So why not bring in a guy in Garrett Wilson if he's there at 12, if everybody else is gone, to come in and just make this whole thing, this offense, just be more explosive than anything. We saw the Rams offense last year, so why not mimic that?
Good edge players too, though, Ben.
See, I'll go back to it. Let me, real quick comment, though. I do think that if you go wide receiver, you'd make a lot of fans happy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think you'd say to these people, look, we're looking long term. There's no guarantee that we're going to give Justin Jefferson one of the highest paid wide receiver spots when he probably deserves it in a year. So you hedge yourself against that, and you hedge yourself against Adam Thielen, who possibly might not be here after this next season. So I think it does make sense. But like I said, I like edge rushers. I think that we need edge rushers. You saw in the highlights. I'm a big fan of Ojabo still.
Yeah.
I think
later in the draft.
You got it.
Yeah.
I
Right now.
He's a project.
Dude, Achilles injuries, guys are coming back just like that.
Agreed.
Okay? He could be a steal there. John Walker out of Georgia. Another freak athlete on the outside. Move him around up and down the defensive line. He's gonna cause havoc. Still a little raw. You can't find that sort of athleticism anywhere. So I would take Trayvon Walker as well.
I think a lot of fans look at wide receiver too, and they saw what the Rams did over the last few seasons. Kevin O'Connell coming here. Maybe they replicate that even more so than what the chatter has been about in this entire offseason. Still much more to come here on A New Era, our Vikings Outlook special. When we return, we head to the film room, and that's where Pete Bursich is standing by, giving us his top 3 fits for the Purple as they head into the 2022 NFL Draft.